new players in the door, or to just make GM's life a little easier?
Yeah, I know that when Fourth came out, Fourth at D&D came out, and all of those monster builders and character builders, and like at the time, like nobody had done anything nearly on that scale, and it kept up for quite a while, and it was really impressive. And it just made it very easy to, as a GM, to go, okay, we make a monster. Here's the general idea I have. Let's put the numbers to it, and just push a button, put in a couple points, then adjust a couple things, and magically I had a session prepped in like an hour. So it was it's a really cool tool. And it's not useful for every kind of game,
right,
but it was very useful for a game that's very heavily mechanical, focused on combat by default, and just a lot of system mastery.
Yeah, find and search in rule books.
Oh
Game
gosh,
changer. Oh my gosh. Did your games ever benefit directly from 3D printing of components?
I have not done that.
Okay.
I do know I have some friends who do have a 3D printer. They actually do convention. They run convention games. And so they'll often print a whole bunch of props for their convention games. And usually it's just like little tokens or something that
Sure.
they take home, but acquired as rewards for stuff that happens during the game. But yeah, I personally haven't had a chance to do that. So.
Legit.
So you mentioned recording sessions, and knowing how I work, I can see how that could be very difficult to review effectively. Listening to your whole 4-hour game in real time, not a super great way to recap and catch up on notes. Do you have any tips or advice for how to make those tools work more effectively?
I think that we really have just a couple people who do jobs that are have a lot of downtime, or like time where they aren't going to focus, and so they will listen to sessions during that. I know that I would have trouble listening to a session every week. I used to do it when I was running them, but right now I'm only a player, and so I feel like my character probably shouldn't have that level of awareness of what's going on, where I can really listen to everything. I have played characters where that was the case. I was the note taker. I was the person who was organized to followed the quest and made sure the party stayed on task. And those games I didn't listen. You just have to carve out the time. And oftentimes I would make it a social thing. The co-GM, one of our co-GMs would just listen, because his thing was making antagonists. Just really good at that sort of mechanical vibe. And so he would listen to those sessions with me while we were just doing other things, and just sort of chat and make it a social event rather than doing it by yourself. Because it is boring doing that just by yourself.
I do also think, and this is something that's broadly applicable to almost everything we're going to touch on today, but there are tech solutions out there for almost everything that can apply to gaming. So listening to 4 hours of real time is arduous, but you can probably get the gist of things by speeding it up 2 times, even up to 7 times. Your brain can handle a lot of speed if you get used to those kinds of tech solutions.
Or transcription programs,
exactly.
those are pretty common now.
Yeah. So
they
casting a
can read
little bit
fast
of a
and
broader
fast.
net. Yeah.
In that vein, what are some ways that those new tools can actually make your job harder, at least until you adjust your workflow to accommodate for them? And what are some approaches you've taken to help with that learning?
Well, some of it is just the technical difficulties element of things. Like the first time you're using that microphone, one is not going to want to play next to your computer at all, and then you accidentally record from your laptop speaker instead of from the microphone, so it defeats the purpose of having a microphone. It's because everyone can hear you, but not anybody else. I know that during the COVID era, we moved a lot of our gaming on Zoom.
And so we had
ran a whole. It was great because I got to do an actual play, which I would never ever convince my gaming group to do, because they like that face-to-face, but it's better than not. But
Right.
online is better than nothing. So, for 2 years. But yeah, just a lot of like figuring out the technology and your software, and also just sort of like the flow of things. Oh, this are the wikis.
Oh, sure,
We
yeah.
have a wiki for our system, or for our games too.
Yeah.
That's also really helpful. But yeah, just knowing that it's out there and getting people on board using it.
Adoption is really,
Yeah.
like, I think there's a siren song to, oh, there's this new platform, it promises the moon, it will work so well for my game, but then you are asking your players to not only adopt maybe a new system, a new game, and also then this new mode of playing, these tools that may or may not actually deliver what they're promising. And so, like, often it can be easier to stick with something you know really well and that everyone's familiar with, even if it's not the new shiny, or even if it's not as powerful as the new tools could be.
Yeah, I know I've bounced off of map-making software multiple times, and it's because graphic design is not my strong suit. And it's just all the honest truth of it. I'd much rather pick up the dungeon house if I really need something that has grids. Those were nice. One of the fourth innovation. But yeah, it just bounced off map. It just feels like it takes way longer than me just scratching it out in paper. And my players, you know, the theater of the mind works fine. You get the little marker, the dry erase marker on the map, and you're fine. You don't need to draw everything, but you feel like you have to if you're using a map maker software. I feel.
I think one of the things that has helped remote gaming for me, because sometimes people can get kind of disconnected, the flow is just off. I really love heavy emoji and text use, because if someone's at the keyboard, then they are actively engaging, they're doing something with their body, and I find that helps people focus and engage more. And so, like, if you can get people to like just react to each other's text and write text in response, even if it's not their action, it doesn't actually detract from the game, it helps keep people engaged.
Yeah, because in a way you do that anyway at the table.
Yeah.
People could like, you know, put in weird comments or make suggestions of bad ideas that so everyone decides to implement.
It's almost a way to facilitate the natural crosstalk you get at a table without being disruptive when you're on Zoom and your mics are selectively picking up specific people.
Exactly. So yeah, we've talked about RPGs. Can we talk about board games?
Sure, we done.
Yeah, so in addition to tools to help you run your game, there's also the aspect of technology as an inherent part of your game design. And that is something several games are leaning into. The titles Grace and I work on at Fantasy Flight both do that. There are a handful of RPGs that do that as well. So let's talk about what technology lets you do in a game design that you cannot do analog, or can you do it?
I think there is definitely a sort of hubris that says, oh, only a machine can do this. Like, you can do it physically. It just might not be a good game experience, which is what I think technology offers. I mentioned condensing complexity before. Especially we see this in Tabletop Simulator or other digital versions of board games where shuffling a deck is a click instead of a huge physical process that can be arduous for some people, especially when a game is requiring you to shuffle your deck every turn or something like that, where the cards are an awkward size, perhaps those mini cards that our games are known for. And those digital tools would also then be able to enlarge text and have more accessibility tools built in without adding extra components to a box or extra budgets to your game. And so technology can make a game easier to make, like produce, and easier to play by condensing complexity within the tool itself. It can also allow some things like procedural generation, which is a mechanical version, a very fancy way of saying randomization. Instead of shuffling a stack of tiles and then laying them one by one to build a map, the machine that you're using, the technology you're using, can do it a little bit more intelligently or a little bit more according to a designer's wishes, quicker and invisibly. It kind of casts that illusion of intentionality for the players so that emergent gameplay can be stronger. They're like, oh, wow, that's so cool, you meant to do that. I'm like, nah, that's random, but thanks for giving me credit. So I can enhance gameplay experiences like that as well.
I played a lot of Ascension, card game for a long, long time, and I remember when Rise of the energy thing was just not fun to play in physical medium, and I just put that away and never got it again. I play all the other sets. But when they moved to have, when I got the app, and I discovered they had all sorts of that goes smoothly. And also, they have this concept of portals where it's pick a random card from any set. And if you were trying to do that in one space, you'd be so effed. But this way, I click on the portal, it flips, and it just picks a random thing, and it's easy.
It just does it,
It just does it. It finds some random card from all the 15 sets that it has out there.
I will jump into a negative of that though, because it immediately flows into when players can't see how the game is working, you're much more likely to have them assume that it's unfair, assume that it's broken or bugged, and also maybe it is bugged. Maybe
It's hard to tell when you have something that's like that.
And so often, if your design is too clever for itself, or if the game is unjudicious with its hiding of complexity, it can frustrate players because they want to know, well, why did that happen? Why couldn't I do that? And it's like, well, there is a reason, but the machine can't tell you. I'm sorry. I think we have a,
Yeah.
You mentioned tabletop games that are integrated with a digital tool in the same way that the app-enabled board games are. Do you have an example of one and how that works?
The one I'm most familiar with is a game called Alice is Missing. It's an RPG where you're a group of teenagers, your friend is missing, and you're communicating with each other entirely via text.
through your actual physical phones.
So you could play it remotely. I think it really took off during lockdown. People would they'd put on a Zoom chat so they could see each other, but they'd also just play the game by texting each other. And the way it uses that technology that you already know with not anything bespoke to the game to kind of feed into the mechanical narrative.
Mm-hmm. And the immersion.
Along with that sense of immersion and that sense of suiting the mechanics to the story.
Hasn't heard this is something that was like multiplayer resort where
It's
obviously more advanced, but
it's much more of a role play.
okay.
It's
But it's just that is the medium.
yeah.
Okay.
But it is
It's
designed.
it's like games that are designed to be participatory games so that the mechanics flow from writing letters to each other.
That's an example. I know of a role-playing game that uses technology as an inherent part of the game design. Do you know any others, Eric? You're kind of our RPG whip here.
I feel like tabletop role playing is things like virtual tabletops help, but I feel like everything is cybernetic, more so than it is a matter of standalone.
Sure.
Because role players are so notorious for wanting to do their own thing, and so it just feels like we have video games. Video games that will give you your 4 menu options for what to say about this thing. But in a role-playing game, when you're at a table or even online, you expect to be able to do the weird stuff.
Sure.
And I think it's really hard to build a game that doesn't let you do the weird stuff without it no longer being considered a role-playing game and being considered a video game instead.
I think, shout out to Yaziba's Bed and Breakfast, which does not inherently use a digital tool for the game itself, but it has an entire video game adaptation of it. So you can play the RPG online with your friends. It's basically a massively multiplayer game at that point, but it is the same game as the tabletop RPG. Uses the same mini game mechanics and things like that, the same characters. So knowing that that RPG team designed it from the ground up to do that, I'm sure it had effects on the RPG as well.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Does the online version of Gazebos require someone to run the game, or does
Nope, not really. Because it's a massively multiplayer online RPG, you basically just hop into a session, kind of like a digital tool, with some number of people, and then choose an interaction and play through it. The game is kind of the GM at that point, because it has bounded the rules that you're playing with, and enforces it kind of just by nature. Yeah.
So like virtual LARP, except.
Yeah, virtual LARP.
And if some LARPs have referees.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So, Eric, you mentioned, well, we have video games for that. Why do we need it?
I didn't mean to sound dismissive, but.
But that does prompt a question that Grace and I grapple with somewhat regularly. At what point does that digital implementation become too much and start to detract from the tactile part of the tabletop game? At what point does it become too integrated and start kind of fighting with itself for what the game's about?
I think to some degree that depends on the players. Like I know players that the idea of digital dice are just anathema. Just even digital dice is a bridge too far. I can't imagine that every group is going to, lovingly update their wiki and, listen to their game sessions and, have blue booking between sessions and want to deal with all of that hassle, perceived hassle. But I think it really just depends on the player. And something, what is the experience that you're looking for? Because if you're wanting to get together and just have some fights, the level of integration can be a little higher because you can, all the hard mechanics in combat are, that's where the complexity tends to be, is in the combat mechanics. And being able to eliminate the complexity element of that while still allowing the choices that you have in a combat. And the whole idea, the reason that they're complex is that you have options. And they have to be mechanical, they have to be fair, or try to be fair. And so taking away the complexity without taking away the options is valuable. But if you're really focused on the story element of things, it's harder to take things out of the experience that don't detract from what you're looking for in the experience. Does that make sense?
Technology and machines do tend to be a little more rigid. Once something is there, like a range-finding tool or something like that, where you automatically know if I can attack that enemy or not. The GM can't fudge it and say, sure you can, because the machine won't let you.
Right.
And so that rigidity of it doesn't fail gracefully enough. The same way that humans can be very adaptable and just say, whatever, it doesn't matter, we'll do it this way.
Yeah, one of the first games I played was Paranoia. It was a long time ago. And one of the bits out of that is that if you want to, the whole line, the GM goes fair and you roll out in the open, what you're telling the players is you don't care whether your characters live or die. And I'm like, that's actually pretty astute because the GM's just more often than the opposite is a way of protecting the players. Not a way of
gentle the
protecting,
story,
to make things so that it's not so bad for them when things would otherwise not go their way. And when you make the technology tell you, you have to accept that kind of risk that the mechanics as designed had better be good to make it so that it's still fun even without the fudging. And everyone has to be on board with the fact that you are going to lose the ability to hand wave it and move on.
I do think there's also, so I mentioned before the idea that if you hide the complexity, many players will start to assume things either to your benefit or detriment. I do also think that there's a way to design a digital tool that makes all of that absolutely explicit, and it's a nightmare to use. There's a term that we talk about a lot in cognitive science, whether a tool is opaque or transparent. And if a tool is transparent, you're using it like it's your own body. It's just a part of you, you use it without thinking about it, you don't even notice it's there really, and that it's a tool that you are using. Good glasses are like that. Whereas if a tool is opaque, not only do you always know that you are using it, but often you will know what you are capable of and what it is capable of, and that does not feel like the same thing. Our goal when we make games often is to make that divide as transparent and as close as possible. We want our players to get immersed in the story, to be their character, to have fun around the table with their friends, and not worry about like technical difficulties or, well, this can happen, but I didn't really want it to happen like that, but the rules say it has to. So any tool that you use, that you choose to use for your game, really should be as transparent as possible and just fade away into the background. That's the hope anyway.
So in that regard, we had a request before the panel started to look at some games that maybe don't do that super successfully. What are some examples you can think of? We'll be gentle. We don't want to make anybody feel bad for liking the things they like. What are some examples of games that kind of fumbled the ball there, or?
Oof. Yeah, I
We
guess.
usually we could throw this in the audience and let
That's
them
true.
tell us,
Does
so that
anyone-
they're the bad guys and we're not.
Does anyone have an example of a game that uses a technology that you just hated? Yeah?
Spark Riders 3000.
Okay, can you briefly explain what it is?
Yeah, it is a game where you've got aliens coming in, you are defending the ship, and trying to fight off the aliens. Stuff goes wrong each round, you gotta roll dice to, stop the bad things from happening, and they're getting closer, ooh, they're gonna blow up the engine core. Cool concept. The thing that I hated about its digital implementation, one, the software architecture was a nightmare. Just even getting the thing loaded was horrible. Thing number two, where I actively went, no, I'm not doing this. It forced me to sign up and enter my email, create an account to even start playing the game. And I'm like, you don't need this from me. I've played plenty of games that have happened.
You have not earned
need
this.
this
Okay.
information. Are you selling this? It felt very scummy to me. And it felt like something that a free-to-play app game on the store would do. And I went, ugh, no, I hate this.
So that sounds like an implementation issue that
Yeah,
prevented you
definitely.
from even engaging with the game in the first place
Yeah.
because of that extra technological hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do have one, sort of.
Yeah?
Sort of. One of the really cool things that's happened over the last 15, 20 years has been the explosion of digital role-playing games. So you basically just
Can you talk into the mic a little bit?
sorry.
Thanks.
Digital role-playing games. So you do have things just on PDF. You don't have to worry about printing costs. You don't have to worry about inventory. You don't have to worry about getting things in stores. It's all online. It's all digital. And as always happens with this sort of thing, you get a wide range of levels of professionalism and skill, and so it kind of becomes a little bit of a challenge of wading through stuff. And the latest iteration of this is a lot of people who are like, art is expensive. We should do AI art, and you're just like, no. And it's bad, and it's sloppy, and it's kind of a slap in the face to everyone who gets paid for this sort of stuff and got scraped, and it's just not very fun.
Yeah, I think so little about AI. That wasn't even on my radar with planning this panel, but it is probably something we could talk about, the impact of AI art, AI content on tabletop gaming. And have you noticed, you mentioned it, so I guess the answer is yes. We'll turn this to the audience. Have any of you noticed an influx in AI-generated RPG content, and
Yeah.
how do you identify it? How do you avoid it? What are some tips there to get that technological gremlin we just don't like out of here?
Yeah?
Count the fingers.
Yeah? Yeah?
Shadows.
Yeah?
It's like it's dark.
In the purple in the back?
I actually really enjoy it. I have a hard time coming up with backstories for my characters, and so I can kind of put some ideas in, and then I end up using that as idea jogger, and I feel like I've had much more fleshed out characters from that.
Sure, yeah.
So I find that it's kind of a mixed bag because, you know, a lot of people who do TTRPG, like content online or live, you only have like a week or 2 weeks to plan your game, make your characters do a side character. And even if you had the money to be able to pay someone, they can't do that in a week, like most of them can't. And then, you know, so you scrape together the money for a real artist to do it. And then your character's already died by the time you get the artwork.
To be clear, I had to clarify, because one of my fellow players did AI portraits of all of our characters at the beginning of the game. And that was a couple of years ago, but, you know, but I'm talking more as producers of
Published material.
Sure. Someone making money off of.
The D&D debacle where the last one of the books they made was all AI art.
Well, was it though, actually? Because I think the artist got slammed for it, but she was just struggling.
There's like been this movement.
I don't know,
And
yeah.
dashes are a tell in AI generated
Yeah.
writing. I love that.
Oh, yes.
It's like,
Yeah, so we've got 2 hands.
Yeah, I saw the flower hair first, and then we'll come up to the foxy.
I feel like in the roleplay places I've been in, there's kind of it's a slippery line, and a lot of people are either really for or really against it, but there's also a lot of people who are in the middle ground, and so the rules of thumb that I've been told are use it for reference, use it for personal use and inspiration, do not use it if you're going to publish it, and do not use it if you're going to get paid for it. And so, like, an example of it is, I'm part of a BTM live stream, and one of our AST/players will make AI art of the characters to like be like, okay, this is what this person looks like, but we don't show that on screen. She uses that as reference art, and then she draws from the AI version in her own art style the characters, and then that's what shows up on screen.
Sure.
yeah, because it's interesting you say about if you're going to sell it, because we don't know yet exactly where the legal stuff is going to go. And
That's true.
can you imagine just like coming up with something that's a seed and using that seed and just innocently like, oh, this is kind of fun, and then you build an entire empire on that, and then it turns out that underlying seed is deemed like to belong to someone else, and now you own all of the stuff that you. Yeah, that's a headache I don't need. I'll just pay the artist the one-time fee and get the rights to put it in my book.
I've been looking at a lot of one-shots and supplements and stuff on Kickstarter, which does require campaigns now to disclose AI use. But also, I've found that the ones that don't use AI really want to brag about the fact that they're not using AI in the descriptions. And so they'll make it super clear, yeah, we have real artists.
I wiped myself,
art,
yeah.
Any AI
Not everyone can say
at
that.
all. And so that's nice that they'll really emphasize that they're
Yeah.
not
Sure.
using it.
Yeah, I do think so. Because Kickstarter has been mentioned, we have not yet talked about how technology as a thing in the world has changed the publishing side, like the entire hobby landscape now. Because it's much easier for indie creators to get something to market, but to crowdfund it, that's great.
Yeah.
It's much easier for people to find very niche games that they want to give money to, and that's great. It also means that the market is really flooded with games, and so it's harder and harder to stand out when you have maybe a great game, but you can't really find your audience.
Yeah, things like Patreon.
Yeah.
You know, being able to have something that like just pays a little additional, and some people live on it, but I can't imagine me so.
Yeah.
But like being able to support that art.
Landscape has really changed.
Yeah, it really has.
Yeah.
On the subject of ownership and the digital world, and going back to one of the digital tools we were talking about earlier, D&D Insider for 4th edition, fantastic tool, wonderful searchable database. I used it extensively, and then they discontinued the tool. And I no longer owned or could access any of those books. Same thing with 5th edition. They do not produce PDFs. The only electronic access legally is through a rental tool where you will buy the right to continue renting new material. But if you stop paying your subscription fee, you are not allowed to have any of that material. And it's not a technically bad tool. It's not hard to use.
Right.
It's just locking you into a subscription model instead of being able to actually purchase the book, other than buying a hard copy, cutting it out of the binding, and scanning it page by page.
Very valid point to bring up. The supremacy of physical media, I think, is very true. I think that it is always better to own a thing physically than to own a digital version. I do think that a lot of app games get unfairly dinged, and this is my own personal bugbear. I have a stake in this argument. The idea of, well, this has a digital component, I can't play the game without it, therefore I shall not buy it because I might not be able to play it in 20 years. It might disappear into the ether. And like, one, how many games are you actually gonna play 20 years from now, when I have already stated the market just continues to get more flooded? We are going to improve games in that time, I promise. And two, the amount of people dedicated to piracy and emulators and the archive instinct of the human race to keep the things, even when they're digital, I think is very powerful and very wonderful. And like, just because something is digital doesn't necessarily mean it can disappear if someone loves it enough. Yeah.
You had it.
On the question of AI, so obviously you don't want AI usage when you're in a capacity of selling things. Where is the line of marketing along those things?
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, is there, paraphrasing, a difference in acceptability between AI in marketing material versus AI in game content?
None of us are marketers here, so like we're mostly speaking out our ass here, but in my opinion, if your game does not use AI and has chosen to not use AI, marketing it with AI is a bad move. It is setting up an expectation from your customers that will not be fulfilled. It is also not doing what another fan here has noted of getting that pride from, we did not use AI and we're against it, and like that kind of marketing is valuable as well. So if you have not used AI in your game, probably don't use it in marketing too, because that's more honest.
I feel like you could be losing the benefits of both of them.
Yeah.
Like if you are getting real artists, like human artists, then you have bragging rights, or at the very least, there are some people that are very, very like, well, if you have any AI art involved, they just no-sell you immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So you're losing those people, but you're also losing the one benefit of AI, which is now you don't have to pay artists, or at least not as much, because
Right.
AI still usually has a subscription these days, or will very soon if it doesn't. So you lose the cost benefit, and you also lose the marketing element of we're using real people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a touchy subject.
It
in the
is.
world right now.
Yeah.
There's a yellow card in the back. Are you still?
Oh, yeah, I
Great.
put it down, like, this, holding this up feels
Yeah,
obnoxious.
yeah.
I originally was gonna gripe about a certain D&D platform, but then I also, the more thinking about like, D&D tech as an accessibility tool. Like, I use Roll20 all the time. I'm diehard Roll20, because I can press the buttons and it'll do the mechanic stuff for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll do the math for me, so I'm not like trying to do all the calculations and stuff. And the one I went to gripe against was D&D Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that's the one that everyone uses, and I've tried to use it several times so that, like, again, back to accessibility, I've got a lot of games where it's people who are like across the country or even in other countries who are playing together, which is something tech can do. And I try and use D&D Beyond so that my DM can have access to my character sheet. But D&D Beyond, one, you have to have access to the book, and two, it doesn't have the flexibility to be able to like fudge things, like you were saying, or do like updated races. Like I am playing a college card, but they don't have that race, so I just couldn't build my character.
Sure. Accessibility is a great topic, and I'd love to come back to that in a hot sec after we hear from, we have two questions here. We have black shirt at the front and then the other yellow card in the back, and let's hit you two. Oh, and then we'll hit you three, and then we'll jump back into accessibility, because that is a great topic, and I do want to make sure we don't skip over in time.
You talked about some of the ways in which digital implementation, can elevate physical components. As designers of hybrid games, Grace and Phil, what are some of the incentives that you try to build into physical components to really attract players so that they will look at something and recognize it as a true hybrid experience and not even have an inkling of, well, maybe I should just play a video game instead?
Oh, baby. So I'm going to try to slap dash this.
Speed run it.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things about tabletop hobby board games is their value as a toy. The idea of a very tactile, fun, visual experience. I like my minis, and now they're painted, and I like my dice, and it's all clicky-clacky, and I love that. Yeah!
Splinter chips
A
are so
good
satisfying.
component cannot be overstated. It is so fundamental to the joy we get from gaming. And so for that reason, we really do want to make the physical board game side of things as rewarding as possible, whether that means lush art on tiles, or whether that means miniatures that can then literally stand on top of the siege tower, or whatever. Like, the toy value of it is very important, and that really it needs to be there for it to be a hybrid app game, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that a digital tool can't also bring that kind of toy factor. I'm thinking specifically of Return to the Dark Tower here. What a good digital tool. What a good ad. For those who have not played it, it is a board game that was released yonks ago, and then re-released with a digital tower in the middle. It had components inside that would turn it and light up and play noises and open doors, and it was mechanically relevant to the game. It would spill pieces onto the board in a dramatic flourish. It would build tension. It was a toy. It was very good and mechanically relevant to the game. So I think that's a great example of something that is truly hybrid, that could not exist without technology, but also still remain true to the spirit of a physical tabletop gaming experience. So sorry, anyway.
The yellow X in the back.
So I,
Second the panel, right?
you mentioned how Kickstarter and Patreon have kind of changed the publishing industry. And I was thinking about the other space of social media and how our conversations have really changed. I was wondering if you could touch a little bit on how the online discourse about tabletop has shifted because of the platforms, from the message board days, all the way to today, and then also how it looks on the back end of the way you're engaging with the people who are playing these games and how you're looking at their input in this new space.
I actually have one very direct example. So I've been working on a book, and we've released a beta to my patrons, and that was amazing. Beta readers are extremely valuable if you can get anyone who is, knows something, and someone who's interested in supporting you financially really wants the stuff that you produce to be good. And so some of them are really opinionated and in a good way. Things that you get so close to something you make, you cannot see its flaws anymore. So it is really valuable to be able to have some, and so that interplay of having that feedback loop is just so amazing, and it's not something, right, like, I don't think everyone enjoys that. but I'm an extrovert. I write to be read. I want to interact with my audience, and so like, it's catnip for me. I like put up a post every week, and like, here's a chunk of the content that I wrote this week, and it keeps me on task, and it keeps, gives me feedback that I can put into use later, and it's just like, oh, it's just so great. And that just wasn't a thing, you know, in the ages where we all sat alone, and maybe eventually an editor would read what we looked at and say, you put too many semicolons in this. Use a dash instead.
I definitely love that, and there's also a negative side.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go there. For the amount of absolute, like, passionate hate the internet has, it will eventually get directed at a game you made or a thing you love, a creator, and oftentimes it drives them away. It kills games, and it can, you know, death threats have been issued. And so like there's an ugly side to the things we make and the creators being forefront and very accessible through social media. So while it's a powerful tool and really it can absolutely bring a resilient community around you and market your game and inspire you to create better things. It just also has its risks.
Yeah, and it's worth noting those risks are not applied equally to all people. If you look like me or Eric, your online experience is a lot more pleasant.
Yeah, and it's interesting that new player acquisition, because that's the other side of the coin too. Because we have social media influencers, we have Critical Role, we have people playing on YouTube like Will Wheaton and things. People have been able to find gaming, find a home in it, really destigmatize it. And that has brought more gamers that look like me to the table. And so while it can be risky, I think it's so important for us to still be in those social media spaces in order to still bring in those new players and make it a really welcoming community, as it always has been, hopefully. It can be.
All right, and
so first off, thanks for everything you said today. My name's Renee, and I'm the founder of a local community called Dungeons and Drinks. And we have about 2,000 adventurers in our community and 150 game masters, and I wanted to offer a little bit of a different perspective on the use of AI. We have a very firm no AI image generation thing because we recognize the impacts it's had on artists, but I'm also a business, which means that if I'm going to be competing with like major corporations that have access to huge teams of people, we're going to have to use AI, you know, for financial forecasting, for copy editing. I mean, I do 40,000 emails a year, and so I think that that's something that's part of this conversation is that there's this balance between how is AI impacting artists, and also are we actually crushing small creators because we want to limit their access to that because of the way that their values are. So I just wanted to add that piece. And then kind of leading into accessibility, one of the things we're doing as we're expanding nationwide is trying to build online platforms so that people who maybe live in rural communities or who maybe don't like to leave the house can actually engage with our content. And I was curious about if you had any kind of suggestions or things that my committee of people who are working on that could think about as they're developing that programming.
yeah, that question does seem like a very strong segue into the accessibility question. What are some ways we can use interactive these digital tools to help with accessibility? What are some pitfalls for ways that they are less accessible in a lot of ways? And how can we apply them in a way that gets more people to the table and gets people who would otherwise not be able to involved?
So Eric, I think you said this earlier, that it really does depend on the actual group of gamers. And so what I think that means is not necessarily do a personal poll of people you know and then pick your tool. I think it means like you gotta know your audience. You gotta know what this group of people that you are hoping will play a game together need, what they will value. Do they have smartphones? Do they have access to the internet? Great, that's a great jumping off point. If not, if you're going to use an app, that's a barrier. It's not going to help accessibility, it's going to lock people out. And so many people will have differing sets of needs, and technology can bridge those gaps. We can have people of differing needs playing together in the same tool, as long as that tool addresses all of those needs, which can be a difficult ask.
Yeah, and I mean, I talk about PDF. PDFs are great for searchability, but also they tend to be cheaper than print, just because there's less cost associated with producing them. But of course, if you are doing that on a smartphone, you're just out of luck. Like, I can't even imagine trying to, even on like a Kindle higher size tablet, I don't gotta try to do a PDF on that. So you basically are blocking out everyone who doesn't have a full-size screen, whether it's a laptop or a larger tablet, if you're only doing digital.
Language translation, speech to text, these are great. Again, as long as the tool isn't less than perfect, because then it becomes opaque and more frustrating to use than transparent. If you're going to use a tool, make sure it's a good one.
We have about 10 minutes.
Yep.
So we can hit a few more questions. The white rig.
Yeah, accessibility is a part of my job, so I think about this often. So I have like two things. First of all, PDFs usually aren't accessible for people with various disabilities unless they've been designed with that in mind. I don't know if game companies design with that in mind, or it's like if you don't have to deal with it, you don't think about it.
And that's because, just to clarify, some of them are rendering text as image, so they don't work with a text screen reader,
Yeah, they
or
don't work with screen readers. So
okay.
like people with who are blind or low vision will use software to like read the text and read like all text back to them. Yeah, I guess that was more of a comment, but I don't know if that's something that game developers are thinking about. Or
Oh, we're not trained on this, no.
We're not trained on it. It's a thing we do our darndest.
Yeah. Once we know a need exists, we can learn it. But again, this is very much nothing in this industry is standardized. We're very small still in the large scheme of things. And also because our wider culture has not made it easy to become accessible or to add accessibility to things, it's mostly you gotta solve the problem from the ground up every time.
A parallel that sticks out to me is colorblind safe pigments and plastics. Like we now have a huge catalog of these are colors that are colorblind safe for the 4 most common types of color blindness. We didn't have that before, but now that we've got it, we know it, and we'll never go back to the old ways as long as I have any say in it. And I imagine things like PDFs of rules documents are in a similar state. Once we know there's a problem with the way we've been doing it, we will do our best to change it. And unfortunately, as Grace said, there isn't a lot of like standardization or oversight. So it's kind of a bunch of people doing their best.
And what we have gaps in our knowledge, we don't always see them.
It's hard to know what you don't know.
Like it's one of those things where if you have the ear of a creator and you can explain what it is that makes something inaccessible, I feel like most creators will in good faith see if they can accommodate it. I mean, we don't have huge, massive, budgets to work with stuff, but if there's something I can do where if I can change a font, or if I can, make it so that, I don't know, because I've never had to do, never had anyone tell me what I can do. I know that when I was a new gamer, the hobby was extremely white, extremely male. My wife and I actually met based on the fact that she was one of the very few women gamers she knew, and we were just trying to talk about that experience and trying to see why that is and is there a way to improve that. And that's improved so much. And I know that Onyx Path Publishing, which is I've done a lot of freelance work for, has made a very concerted effort to include a variety of people of different backgrounds in their art, within their games. And I think that helps in little ways. But it wasn't something that just happened out of nowhere. People had to go, it would be, I've noticed that it's just like no one other than a bunch of white guys in all of these things. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And that's really a shame. I think we can fix that. And it's not hard. You just change the art notes, add some different details.
And then those artists
if I don't
use
know,
technology for references.
But if we don't know,
Yeah.
it's impossible for us to do anything but guess.
And
It's almost like solidarity benefits everyone.
yeah, and as that's an example of where that online communication helps.
Yeah.
Because we can learn, the way we make our PDFs matters, and we can try to do better.
Any last parting?
Fred?
I'm really curious how you feel about the implementation of about avenues for hidden trader specifically. Because like that feels like an avenue that can be really good for it, but I don't know that I've seen a really good hidden trader app game.
Do you, in your
Repeat the question.
The
neighbors are a little
using an app solution to present a hidden trader game like Werewolf Mafia, that sort of thing. And if there are examples that leverage technology to assign those roles and enforce the rules.
So, do your games ever do hidden information direct to specific players' phones or
absolutely.
things like that?
No,
Okay, so
that's not so much to players' phones, but
Okay.
we definitely, part of blue booking is often the sharing of information.
Yeah, so that's like the most fundamental version of that, I think.
Because we had one person who, it was a Firefly game, and everyone had a secret coming in. One of his character secret was that he had an evil twin. And at one point, the evil twin kidnapped our captain and replaced him, and was pretending to be the captain for like an entire season, and nobody could figure it out. Nobody realized it until the reveal, and it was amazing. It was great. But it was set up. The GM, my wife and my friend, set it up early in advance. We all trust each other. We've been playing forever, so there was not a concern that this was going to be an issue with the player interaction, because anytime you have a hidden trader, there is that risk that you're going to upset your fellow players. But yeah, it's possible to do it. It doesn't require technology, but I guess I've used direct messages within Mushes, in the Mush client, where you do like a chat to a specific person.
There's a callback.
Yeah, well, that was like most of my online play when I did that, early on. But yeah, just direct messaging to people and revealing secret information that way.
The tech lets you do it a little more discreetly than I'm passing a note to that one player. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, the fun thing, notes though have their own advantage.
Sure, because it might be nothing.
Exactly. No, that's a different panel.
Yeah,
A whole bunch of evil GM tricks. I love them.
So I have used an app to create a hidden trader in a game that didn't previously have it. That the mechanics didn't previously support this, but then we used an app to really like hammer home. There are some messages that you just won't see. There are some messages that are only going to certain players. It can be very good. It can be very, like you said, it amps up that surprise. It really does facilitate a kind of secrecy that was not previously possible when you're all physically around a table. I also think that for many hidden trader games, low tech still is better. And I often think this because deception and social interaction is still so much better face to face. It's still so much better. I say better as if it's an objective truth. It can facilitate more flexibility and more nuance and variability face to face. But I do think that like even the super low tech versions of it, where like I know Werewolf has an app that's basically just a timer. It's a timer and music, and it does improve the game because it's a specific timer and it's specific music, and that's cool. It's simple, it's fairly low tech, even though it's like an app, but yeah, I don't know. I think that there's pros and cons.
All right, we got 2 minutes, 1 minute. Is there anything either of you wants to circle back to real quick?
Oof. Oh man, there were a couple things, but none of them are coming to mind now because I'm an infallible human.
Can you talk about the games you make?
Oh, yeah, I guess we could pitch. I guess that's allowed.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
The two most popular games that I've done are Mansion of Madness 2nd Edition, which took a completely analog version of the game and added an app GM so that it was purely co-op with a hidden trader. It's fine. And then Journeys in Middle-earth, which again is a hybrid app game, but that one was a campaign game and purely co-op, so it helped with the save states.
As I mentioned, I write role-playing games. Deviant the Renegades is the one that I'm the most involved with, which is through Onyx Path Publishing originally, but now it's a long story. But I'm producing them still. I was a developer for several years, and then I've been just basically continuing, even though the license holder has basically said Onyx Path can't do it. Freelancers can totally do whatever they want. But I have a player's guide for that called Shallow Graves. It's on Drive-Thru-RPG. I'm in the process of working on a storyteller's guide and a night horrors book for it. So, like more critters, sort of. There's a lot of critters in that game anyway. Also, just started getting some work for Curseborn, which is the urban fantasy game that Onyx Path is putting out now. It's been kickstarted. The physical books aren't out. It's not like in the final version yet, but it's getting close. So I've been working on the player's guide to that, which has been a lot of fun.
Nice.
And I worked on Journey to Middle-earth with Grace, I worked on Mansions of Madness with Grace, and I also worked on Descent Legends of the Dark, which is our big dungeon crawly, fight dragons and stuff.
Oh, I better give you a warning. There's another Eric Zawadzki out there who is a comic book artist, and he's great, but always happens. I am not a visual person that way.
There's another Philip Henry you'll see online, 15th century theologian.
Yeah, but it's fun. He's cool. We chat and share stories because having the name Zawadzki is kind of a burden in itself sometimes. When like you're John Smith, no one assumes that you're every John Smith. When you're an Eric Zawadzki, everyone assumes every Eric Zawadzki is you, which I discovered kind of the hard way. So, all right.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.